Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have your Bitcoin/cryptocurrency update for December the 19th. Before I jump into today's video, please do me a huge favor. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button on this video. Please make sure you do that. You know, these videos get hundreds of views, but only like 5 or 10% of people actually hit that thumbs up. It's really important for me to grow the channel so that I continue doing daily content. So please take a moment now, hit that thumbs up button. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure you do that, and also click the bell notification to get notified when I release these daily videos. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about catching bottoms. There is a ridiculous number of people on Twitter who are calling bottoms, saying that the bottom is in, and they're the same people that have been saying the bottom was in every time we've dipped pretty much since June. They're the same type of people who were saying 10K was the bottom, and then 9K was the bottom, and then they said that we'd fill the gap at 8,500 and go up, and then it was 7,200's the bottom. This was it, the China pump. This is the new bull market, and then this was the bottom, and now this is the bottom. Gambling on bottoms is for chumps, okay? It's for chumps, and it's for gamblers. It's not for serious investors, and it's not for traders. There are obvious signs when a bottom comes into a market. Obvious signs. I'm going to show you right now an obvious bottom. So this right here is actually a Bitcoin chart. This is from November of 2018 until April of 2019. And this was as textbook as you could possibly get for a market bottom. You had price moving sideways for a considerable amount of time. It was consolidating. A lot of people were saying this was accumulation. It turned out to be mini distribution, and then boom, capitulation. Capitulation is what comes before a market bottom. And you'll notice that capitulation is not a small move in this example. It's not a $500 move or a $1,000 move. This was a 50% move. It dropped from 6,300 all the way down to 3,200. That was the first sign that we may be approaching the bottom, because it's capitulation. The second thing is, if you look right here, I've got this 200 WMA written here. Why? Why do I have that written there? Let me show you why. If we look at a weekly chart on Bitcoin and we zoom out and go back to December of 2018, right here on the week of December the 10th, we touched the 200 weekly moving average, which had acted as support in previous bear markets. So if we take a look at that on the week of December 10th, right here, the 15th was the bottom. That was that week. That was when we touched that 200 weekly moving average. So we were sitting on an important level of support. B, we had bullish, and I mean massive bullish divergence. We had an extremely lower low. Right over here is around 3,700. Down here is around 3,200. That's over 10% difference. We had this massive uptrend in RSI. So there's our bullish divergence. We're sitting on top of support. That's number 2. And if you go back in history and look, that level was actually an important level back here in 2017. It was resistance. So it was also horizontal support around that level. So guess what? That's 3 different reasons to enter a long position. Boom. Right there is where you buy Bitcoin. That is where you gamble and say, this might be a bottom. Okay? Had you done that and set a stop loss, you never would have been stopped out of that trade. You would have caught the exact bottom. If you were a more conservative trader, you may have said, okay, this looks like a potential bottom. I'm going to wait for confirmation. And if you had waited, this thing consolidated for 4 freaking months, just moved sideways for 4 months. And then what did it had? It had an ascending triangle. So now you have reason to believe that is the bottom. You had this bullish divergence. You had that 200-week moving average. You have a series of higher lows while a flat line of resistance. Again, ascending triangle. And if you look, you had this really strong uptrend on RSI. And as soon as it broke out right here on March 31st On April 1st, it came down for a bullish retest. And if you had entered on the close of that candle, you would have bought Bitcoin at $4,137. And boom, rode that rocket ship to the top, hopefully. This is what a bottom looks like. Let's go back in history and take a look at what the bottom of 2015 looked like. This is what people thought was the bottom. It wasn't. Here's the bottom. You get your big capitulation move, and you have, ready? Oh, I don't know, roughly 288 days of consolidation or accumulation. And what do you have? You have price making higher lows. You have price making roughly the same high. Had a false break, obviously. And then what do you have? You have the breakout. If we measure this thing from here to here and pull it over, bam, there's your breakout target. Where did this first breakout stop? Right there. Kept going up and then closed just above that. That is what the bottom of 2015 looked like. I mean, go back to the market in 2011, same thing, right? You have these huge periods of consolidation, right? If this was the bottom here, after the bottom, it was roughly 72 days before price moved up. So, and again, you came right back down and retested that bottom right here. But for some reason, people on social media act like this is going to be the first time in Bitcoin's history that it comes down, puts in a bottom, goes up a little bit, and then just skyrockets. No consolidation whatsoever. Now stop and ask yourself, does that make sense? Does that really make any sense at all? I'm not saying it's impossible, right? I don't want to be sitting here and pretend to be, be arrogant, be like, oh, it can't possibly happen. Sure, anything is possible, okay? But that's not normally what happens with Bitcoin. This fear of missing the bottom is what causes people to FOMO into positions during bear markets, and it's how they end up getting wrecked, okay? So I wanted to point that out before I talked about anything else. I do not think this is the bottom, and if it does end up being the bottom, we should see some consolidation, and there's no need to have a fear that, oh my God, I'm going to wake up one day and Bitcoin's going to be up 100%, I'm going to miss the train, right? Worst case, if that did happen, which it's never happened in Bitcoin's history, but if it did happen, there are other things to invest in, right? You don't have to invest in Bitcoin. So, take that for what you will. Let's look at some charts and let's look at what's going on currently with Bitcoin, okay? So first chart I want to look at, let's look at the weekly chart. What we have on this weekly chart is we have this weekly RSI. It's, I talked about this yesterday. It's tucked back inside the box. So not a whole lot to talk about. We have to wait for the week to close and see what happens. This candle here is not bullish. It's also not bearish, right? It could go either way. It's just a spinning top. Spinning tops typically represent indecisiveness in the market, right? So neutrality basically. So we need to wait. The weekly chart's not telling us anything right now. The one interesting thing about it is of course it does look like it's trying to put in a double bottom if you count those tails, but only after it breaks this neckline at 7,500 and closes above it would that be confirmed. So that's kind of what the weekly looks like. And if you look at a 3-day chart, a couple interesting things, right? We did come up and test this 61.8 trend extension right here. Found that interesting. It does, at this point, it does look like a bearish retest, right? Both of that line of price resistance and also of the RSI resistance down here. So I found that pretty intriguing. If this thing ends up resuming this downtrend, we could be seeing, price move down toward 5,500 and maybe even a little bit lower, because really right here is our area of liquidity, okay? So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Again, I don't think it's bullish, but I don't think it's bearish. I don't think it's a reason to just get willy-nilly and say I'm going to short Bitcoin, unless it's on a day trade, right? Day trades are a different story altogether. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on that 3-day chart. If I do look at a daily chart, the one thing that's very, very clear to me is what this thing actually did was come up and retest this neckline right here, and it failed, right? It had a false break above it, and it's right back underneath it. So it doesn't look like it's really done anything super special, and it actually closed right at this old low over here. So that's not what you're looking for if you want to get bullish, right? Definitely not what you want to look for. It almost looks, and again, I'm not going to go into a short right now, but it almost looks like I might be dreaming when I hope this thing gets up to 9 grand so that I can short it. Almost looks like that's not going to happen. Okay, I'm not ready to say it's not going to happen yet. I'm still crossing my fingers, hoping that's what we see, because that would be a much easier short to take. But right now, this almost looks like a bull trap. It almost looks like this pump was, basically geared to get bulls excited and to wash out late bears before price continued its downside. So keep an eye on that for sure. Also, what was very cliche, and I'll tell you guys, there's actually a trade that I teach called the far from moving average trade. It's a trade that I learned from a Wall Street guy. And essentially, without going into specifics, the way this setup works is one of the key things that we look for is we look for price to come back to retest certain moving averages. And when I say come back to retest it, I don't mean when it's close to it. When it gets far away from it, that's why it's called a far from moving average trade, right? And comes up to retest it, or if it's way up here and comes down to retest it, those are often good places to look for longs and shorts. And if somebody had shorted it right here, right, they would have been short right at 74.41. 74.46, sorry. That was the 200 moving average. And of course, within 12 hours, it was actually down by over $400. So a person could have potentially made, 5 or 6%. Really good trade. So again, this was very cliche. This just came up to retest the 200 4-hour moving average. It looks like a bearish retest. That is indeed bearish. That is not bullish. Okay. The fact that it failed like that, not good. Not good. Not good for bulls. And frankly, it's not good for bears either if you're a bear like me, because I'm a cautious bear, right? I don't want to chase down these shorts. I want to wait until I have a really good setup. By the way, that was a really good setup. I just had piss poor timing, and I happened to leave about 30 minutes before that to go out to dinner and have barbecue with my family. So yeah, not cool. I missed that. That's what I'm seeing on Bitcoin right now. I'm still waiting. Right now I'm just day trading, right? On the 1 hour, we've broken above the 200 moving average and we're riding on top of it, but I don't really care about that, right? It's good for day trades. It's good to kind of keep an eye on for day trades, but on a big picture, no one really cares about the 1 hour chart, okay? And of course, on the 5-minute chart, same thing. Right now, it's just consolidating sideways, moving along this 200 moving average. Doesn't tell me whether it's going to go up or down, right? I don't get anything out of that. When I look at that, I'm not like, oh, okay, that looks bearish. No, it's just moving sideways. It could absolutely be distribution, right, through here, mini distribution, or it could be mini accumulation before the next move up. There are some people who have a theory, and this is not my theory because I'm not an Elliott wave trader, but there are some theories floating out there that this was an impulse, that this is going to be the second wave, that we'll get a third, fourth, and fifth wave all the way up to 8,800 or 9 grand, which again is that target that I ideally would like to see hit as a bear, right? I'm sure bulls would love it too if it kept going up, but I would love it as a bear. So that's what I'm saying on Bitcoin, right? Pretty clean picture right now, just waiting for more information and just trading these smaller time frames until then. That's probably the greatest thing about being a day trader, right? And of course I swing trade, I do position trades, and I day trade. And I just switch to whatever's working at the moment. Sometimes swing trades are going to be the way to go, right? Like back here, if I hadn't gotten smoked on this move and I had been in the game instead of, cursing and swearing and taking a break, yeah, there was actually a really good swing trade up here and I missed it. And then if I'm being fully honest, a little embarrassing to say because traders should always have control of their emotions, but I didn't. I was very pissed off. So if I'm being fully honest, I will tell you guys that when this pumped up here, I did open a short, which was a perfect swing opportunity. And I even told my wife, if the short goes well, I should make X amount of dollars. And it was a large amount of money. It would have been basically about a 10% gain on my entire portfolio. But I got scared and I got nervous and I thought, I just don't want to eat another loss. So I ended up closing that trade for like a 1 or 1.5% win instead of holding it and sticking to my analysis and riding it all the way down like I should have, right? The people in my Discord saw that firsthand, right? I did it. I think I even mentioned when I did it that it was stupid. I shouldn't do it, but I just didn't want to take a loss, right? So one thing I will tell you, if you're a trader and you hear yourself saying stuff like that to friends, or you hear yourself talking like that to yourself, you catch yourself thinking that way, you need to check yourself. Because, yeah, losing that money that I lost back here, that 5%, 5% of my portfolio, let's be clear, it was a lot of money. It was bad, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I could have just stayed in my short position that I opened up here, and if I'd have ridden it down, then I actually would have made back that entire 5%, and I would have made back, another 5% on top of it, right? I could have made 10% of my portfolio, but I got out of the game emotionally, and when you do that, you make really big mistakes. So that's what people do on this FOMO stuff, right? They FOMO in. But guys, I got to tell you, this back here, it just looks a whole lot like this, right? Very, very similar. I could go more detail, but I don't want to spend 10 minutes doing it. But it's very, very similar. You can do your own analysis and put them side by side and say, wow, this is really, really close, right? So no, this would not surprise me if this did pump all the way up to 9 grand. It also wouldn't surprise me if this is it, right? We don't have the benefit of the China news this time. That China news really got people super excited. The pump was already happening. It was already set up. And then that news broke and it helped to give it that extra push. So maybe it doesn't get that high this time. Maybe this is all the bulls could muster, and maybe it just goes down from here. And if so, it's cool. I'll just day trade it. And, there's lots and lots of day trades. So it's fine. Unless something major happens on a daily chart, right now I'm just more interested in the weekly close and see if it gives me any direction. Because, again, if we look at this on a line chart, this doesn't look bullish, right? This still looks very, very bearish, all right? One thing I do want to say, I want to talk about this, I almost forgot. If you look at this, I found this very interesting. I'm still paying attention to this trend line. Look at this. This is that uptrend that started back in, really it started in December, but when you draw this trend, you can draw it from February through March. And we had almost a perfect touch right here a couple of weeks ago. And this thing actually came right down through that. So until this breaks underneath that, I'm not going to be like super bearish where I'm like, oh gosh, this is definitely going down. Again, long term, yeah, I think it's got a lot further to fall, but I'm talking about short term, right? As long as it's above that, I'm still holding out hope that we'll get that bounce up to 8,800 or 9 grand. Now, if it falls below this line, right, then what I would be watching for, and when I say fall below it, I'm talking about close, right? Just to be clear, obviously we did fall below it right here. But if we fall below this on a weekly and we close underneath it, I would be looking for some type of retest of that line, right? And then possibly further downside. Bitcoin loves to retest. Most assets do, but Bitcoin specifically seems to really, really do this a lot. If you look at the daily chart right now, this is one of the reasons that I'm not overly bullish about this pump. If we draw this from close to close, right? This was actually that triangle that I talked about a few weeks ago, obviously before it broke, right? We had a triangle that looked something like this. All this looks like to me is it looks like it fell out of the triangle, came back up for a bearish retest, and then it wants to move down further. And you might say, well, James, you're being biased. Don't draw it from the closes. Use the wicks. Okay, I can do that too, right? Draw it from this tail down here to this tail right here. It's the same thing. It closed right above it, came right back underneath it, right? It looks like a bearish retest. If we draw it right here, again, same thing. It looks like it broke above it, closed right above it, and now it's back underneath it. Bearish retest, right? No matter how I draw that triangle, and again, it was a triangle, right? No matter how you draw that, it just looks like a bearish retest, right? If you draw it like that, it looks like it came back up inside of it, hit the top, and then fell back down. Bearish retest, okay? The only way that stops being a bearish retest is if you redraw the triangle more like this, and I don't think that's a legit way to draw that triangle, right? Now, this could be the triangle that we're in right here. You see this? It could be that this was actually the triangle that we just topped the top of it, that we're going to move back down to the bottom, and then we could see something like this toward the end of the year. Or, it's possible that it could come up out of the top of it for sure. But normally when you get a descending triangle, especially when you get a descending triangle at the bottom of a downtrend, they normally act as a continuation pattern, which means price will continue moving in the direction it was moving when it started. If it's moving down and you get a descending triangle, it typically moves down further. And if you want a really good example of this, man, I hate these magnets sometimes. They really mess my lines up. This was a perfect. I remember in 2018 people arguing and saying, no, that's not a descending triangle. It's not a descending triangle. Yeah, it definitely was a descending triangle, right? And so it's very possible that we're actually going to do the same thing, and that when we finally fall at the bottom of it, that we'll get exactly what we got in 2018, which is our capitulation move. And that would make sense. If you think about it, it would make perfect sense. If it does consolidate a little bit, we get mini distribution through here, and then we dump down, that could be the move that takes us down to the 200-week moving average, right? Or it could actually break beneath that 200-week moving average, and that would be the path to new lows, right? That would be where we start talking about, some crazy stuff. In fact, let me talk about some. I don't know that I'll call it crazy. I think it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun to look at, and I think it's way too soon to get, too overly wrapped up in it. But check this out. If we actually put this on a log chart instead of an auto chart, and we draw a trend extension. Somebody on Twitter actually pointed this out to me the other day. I didn't know that TradingView had actually fixed this, so you could set this up to work with log charts instead of regular charts. Check this out. So if you check this little thing, it'll change the fibs to work with the logs. Look at that, right? If you draw that from the top of 2017 and you draw this down, and then this is your pullback, right? Which, by the way, it is a pullback. It definitely qualifies. Usually what you're looking for on this kind of stuff is a 33 to 66% pullback, and that was about 65%. So it does qualify. This could be your A, this could be a B, and this could be a C. And I'm not talking about Elliott Wave ABC. I'm just talking about a trend, basically. So if that's the case, the full extension of this trend is actually at $2,181, and the 1.618 extension is actually at $695, which is pretty crazy. If you look at it on a non-linear chart, or non-log chart, sorry, then you get something that looks like this, and this doesn't really, I don't know how much I care about this, right? The only line that really interests me, you could say there's a little bit of support and resistance there. I don't think it's that great. A little bit right here, it's playing around that level. But, if this one comes true, then the 78.6 level's right at $692. I don't like this one as much because the full extension is below zero, which again is impossible. But I really like the log version, right? If you look at that log version, that $2,181 would be the extension. Really interesting. Okay? Will it stop there if it gets there? I don't know. No idea. Right? There's not really any support there. It's kind of a random number. That's not really anything special. If it does get below 3,000, I think it's much more likely that it comes down to around either this level right here, where it didn't retest price. See, this never came back down to retest that. So either there, or I think it's possible that it would get down to like 11 or 1,200 bucks and retest the 2013 highs. But anyway, I want to show you guys this because look, we are in a downtrend. There's no way to argue that. That's not actually up for debate. Now the bottoms, that's a whole different story. This could be the bottom for sure. It could absolutely put in a reversal and move back up. That is up for debate. But we're in a downtrend, right? That's confirmed by technical analysis. So we have to see a trend reversal before we have a reason to get bullish. If we get bullish before then, we're just gambling, okay? So I spent a lot of time on Bitcoin today, so I'm not going to talk about alts again. Mainly because until Bitcoin decides what it's doing, I don't feel comfortable making too many predictions about alts. I just think we need to wait and see what Bitcoin's going to do. And if we look at dominance, well, you know what? Let me talk about alts for just a second. I'd feel kind of weird not doing alts. So it's back above that line. I think yesterday I was talking about this looking like a bullish retest to me. So that still looks like it's very possible that the alts did have a bullish retest. Ew, that don't look good. On this smaller trend here, it almost looks like they just fell back underneath that line. They're sitting right above it there. I don't like the way that looks. That doesn't look good. So, like I said, I just want to wait, right? I know that's not sexy. I know people don't watch videos and go, man, I hope this guy tells me to wait. But that's what I'm doing. I'm just waiting. Until I see something that's a setup, I'm going to keep waiting. I don't see anything on this yet. Just wait, guys. Sorry, I know that's not what you want to hear. I know you want some kind of great news like, hey, short this, long this, all that kind of stuff. But I don't have any plans of shorting or longing anything until I get a clear signal. Until then, I'll just day trade, right? And day trading is easy, right? Day trading is really just a matter of looking for support and resistance and looking for things like divergences and looking for things like momentum. And right, you just put all those things together and then you just take your little 0.5%, 1% trades, do a couple of them a day, and you're banging out some money. So yeah, with all that being said, please remember that obviously I am some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, so nothing in this video is financial advice. Nothing in this video is trade advice, and you should always do your own due diligence before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe to the channel, and please click that bell icon to get notifications when I do more daily updates. Don't forget you can check the description for links where you can follow me on TradingView, Twitter, where you can join my free Facebook group, and also where you can join my paid trading program if you'd like to learn how to trade. This is James with Crypto Common Sense. Trade safe.